Welcome back to Hotel Talk, and I'm very, very pleased to be airing this episode because Natasa and I have been trying to plan this for, I think, over a year.
While, yeah. Sorry about that. That's
no, don't worry.
Largely my fault.
So today I'm joined by Natasa Pilides, who I don't really think needs an introduction. Among the many things she does, I'd say the hardest job is that she's a mum of three. I have to say that because I'm also in that category, and it is tough.
It is tough. Yeah.
But she's also very well known in Cyprus. She's the ex-Minister of Energy, Commerce and Industry. She was the first shipping deputy minister that we had in Cyprus, and she also previously was the Director General of Invest Cyprus, and is just everywhere and doing so many things.
Hardly. Thank you so much.
And always impressing us. So, Natasa, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. It's a massive honour, and I know you host such esteemed personalities, so it's great that I can be on the podcast as well.
Wow,
really
I'm just delighted. I'm really excited. Also because, as you know, you were saying about Hotel Talk earlier, we try and really get to know the guests so the listeners and viewers can really get to see maybe a different side of them. So that's where I'm going to start, actually, by asking you a bit about you. Like, who is Natasa? Who are you? And maybe...
I try not to think about it too much, but
now that you've had a chance to sit down.
In terms of existentialist qualms and things, I think I was telling someone recently that when you have kids, the biggest sort of gift that kids give you is that you stop questioning yourself, and you sort of get you concentrate on bringing them up, and that's massively therapeutic, I think, to someone like me who's always wondering, what should I be doing? Why am I not doing this? Why am I doing that? Da, 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 da. And it is in some ways quite vain to be like that, even though it doesn't come from a place of vanity, but I suppose you do get
but
quite
we all reflect a lot.
So I'm thankful that I don't do that as much nowadays. When I was a minister, I didn't have time to do it because you just get on with all the stuff that you have to get on with. But I don't know, I'm a strange mix, I guess, between a creative person who loves to read, and I studied literature and language and love sort of the psychology behind it as well, and sociolinguistics, and why people act the way they do, But also because I was I then became a chartered accountant, I suppose I had a different outlook on life after that. Not massively, not a different outlook on life, but you have an insight into things that you never would have otherwise been familiar with. So it really kind of opens you up to another world, which is the world of finance and how the economy kind of is driven forward and how growth is achieved, which is really interesting as well. So I'm lucky to have that, and all the experiences of the jobs I've had I've been fortunate enough to do in my life. But I don't. It's difficult to sort of put yourself in a box, isn't it? I don't know. It's perhaps easier for someone who knows me to say.
Well, I love that you do literature, which is psychology and people and analysing, and then accounting, analysing numbers, but so different, black and white.
So different, yeah, because when you're doing things like literature and philosophy, you're really questioning sort of, the essence of life, why you're here, why you do what you do, why someone writes the way they write, why they, who is the narrator, who is the character, what is in between, and so many interesting concepts, but they're all very abstract in some ways, and then not in others, because you see them, see, human behavior in your life, don't you? And you can interpret it through different lenses. But then being practical, I think, is really important in life. So the accountancy aspect, I guess, a lot of people think, accountancy is so boring. But it's not really. It's quite interesting because it's not just accountancy. It's not just, let me do the accounts of the hotel and sit and do debits and credits. It's not that at all. It's how does it work? How is it viable? You know, how do I get financing? How do I sustain it? How do I give return back to the shareholders, etc., which is all very interesting concepts.
So tell us a bit about
in practice.
About growing up. Where were you born? How did you grow up? Where did you go and study?
Well, I was born in Nicosia, and I've lived there for most part of my life. So I was there in Omologides, which is a very nice part of the centre-ish of town, till I was about 8 or 9, and then my parents moved to Ngomi, so we lived there until I went to uni. And then I went to Oxford, which was a fantastic experience. I really wanted to go there because my parents took me to visit all the different universities, which was very lucky because then you have an opinion about where you want to go. I loved Oxford because it's a town in itself, aside from being a great university, and so you feel like you're part of the university community, but you also can live in a place that has a lot to do and you know a lot going on around it as well.
Place.
And just the amazing people that you meet and interact with is life changing. So for me, that's been a life changing experience, and I really wanted to go there also because. And this may sound a little bit bad, but I didn't have any friends going there. I didn't know anyone going there. And I didn't want to sort of end up in a microcosm of what my school or, you know, the Cypriot community was, because I think you really need to open yourself up to the world, you know, and find
new
out
experiences,
about
new
people,
cultures.
different experiences. Exactly. So I was really lucky to actually, very scary when you're 18, I guess, but to just go there knowing no one and kind of building your identity from there, which is very important when you're a young adult, because you know you shouldn't. I don't think people should be defined by what preconceptions they have or what comfort zone they're in growing up. So yeah, that was my early life, and then I came back to Cyprus to do the ACA at PwC, where I worked for many years. And I was in audit to begin with, which for financial services organizations, which was very interesting at the time. There was some interesting banks, investment bank that I was auditing at the time and stuff. So that was a good experience. And then I was able to go on to comment to Milan because I spoke Italian, so they needed people who could audit.
And how did you learn Italian? How did that happen?
At uni, because I studied French and Italian literature, so I spoke Italian well. But when I went to Milan, I learned all the financial terminology as well, because obviously we had to do everything in Italian. It's not like here where you do a lot of the work in English. So no one spoke English. So, you know, you really had to kind of get up to speed on all the, what derivatives are and how do you express that you've tested their accuracy and you know all that kind of stuff. It was very interesting. I was very proud that by the end of it people couldn't tell I wasn't from there, so they would ask me, oh, where in the south are you from, because obviously I look like I'm not from Milan. but it was fun. Then when I came back I transferred to the tax department of PwC, and I was working there for a while, and then to London in 2011. Yeah.
Interesting. We just had Cleo Papadopoulou from PwC on the podcast as well. So
yeah,
that was really
Cleo's amazing. She's a force of nature.
Yeah, so bubbly. It was a really, really fun episode. So how did your journey take you to become a minister in Cyprus?
Ooh, very randomly, actually. So in 2014, or was it 15, I came back to Cyprus from the UK and started working at Baker Tilly, which was a very interesting job because Baker Tilly was about to open the office in Greece, the new firm in Greece, and I was sort of hired to actually do that with Marios Klidou, who is of course the CEO, and then eventually started working with all the countries that they were active in, so Romania, Bulgaria, Moldova, and Cyprus, of course. And that was very interesting. But I always, I suppose, had an interest for, the public domain and things, and so that's how I ended up going to Invest Cyprus. But somewhere in between, I have a friend, a very good friend, who was involved in uh, policy production groups in English, chamadas parágogis políticos of the city, of the Democratic Rally, and he found it very motivating. So he said to me, "Well, you should get involved because it's really cool, and I feel like I'm contributing to Cyprus in some kind of indirect way." So I sent my CV to Averov actually at the time. I didn't know him. It's actually quite a funny story. And then he called his secretary called me, and she said, "Oh, the president would like to meet you." And I was, of course, extremely shocked and scared. And I thought, why does he want to meet me? I'm only trying to get into some, tax group or whatever to help out. And so I went. We had a very nice conversation. And eventually he ended up asking me to run in the elections in 2016, the MP elections. As there's these candidates called Aristindin, so he had the right to, well, every president had the right to pick, I think it was 3 at the time. And it was a really tough decision, actually, because I'd never, as much as I like being in the public domain and sort of contributing, it's always a bit unnerving to actually run in a huge election when you haven't done anything like that before. And a lot of the other people had started preparing for it, obviously, years before. And this was February, and I had to run in May. And I was also pregnant at the time, which I hadn't told anyone about. I'm not even sure I realized to begin with at the time. But anyway, I said yes, and it was a very, very challenging thing. It pushes you so much, because you have to go and speak to people that you don't know, and convince them to vote for you or ask for their votes, and that's an uncomfortable thing to do, I guess. So
you have to be quite brave, I think, and come out of a lot of comfort zones.
Exactly, and you do it in so many different settings, and some of them are very awkward, and it just pushes you, and that was a good experience. But it was also good because it sort of gave me some visibility in terms of people getting to know me, and me being able to express my views and be more active in that sphere. So obviously I wasn't going to get elected. I didn't get elected, but I did all right. I got like 4,000 votes, which was beyond expectation. I remember when I first started the process, I felt very much like I jumped into the unknown. So I asked to see the communication advisor of the party, and he said to me, he said to me at the time, he said, nobody knows you. You're a kid. I was like, I don't know, 34, 35 at the time. And you're going to commit a lot of blunders.
You weren't a YouTuber.
And people, it wasn't even a thing at the time. But, all these other people, they are going to destroy you. He said, "No, if I made up pampers, So what I advise you is
morale boosting conversation.
Do not go on any TV shows. Do not go on any radio shows. Speak as little as possible. And because, you're a likable person and that, it's okay. You're going to get by. And just acquaint yourself or sort of reconcile yourself with the idea that you're going to come last." So I was so outraged by this conversation. And then the next day I was like, so this was a communications advisor who I think was advising the party at the time. Okay. So the next day I called them and I said to them, "Please, if you have any TV shows where people can't make it, I want to be on them, and radio shows and this." And I had all my, by that point I'd moved to Invest Cyprus, so I already had a lot of information material about, the economy and investments and sort of strategy on how to become a more business-friendly place and, this kind of thing. So I did think that I had a good case and
as good
quite
a
a lot of
chance as
knowledge
any.
to.
Yeah.
So it ended up being a very pleasant experience actually, and I enjoyed sort of doing all of this stuff, and I also think that it helped. So, but you know,
so that was
your
first toe in the water, let's say.
Yeah.
And
but I had
moving
to do
on
my
from that?
job, so I would leave my job at 6, and then I would go to all these villages until midnight and do like campaigning and, you know, all these different parts of Nicosia. My granny at the time was very active, so I remember we'd go to the we'd go to the confectionery shop and get, you know, almira and this kind of thing, and just take them with us and go to Gagua and speak to people in the coffee shops and things. So it was it was an experience. Eventually, I got what do you call it? I got sick because I was so tired.
I'm
One
sure.
day I had fever, and I had 1 hour where I could sleep. I cancelled one appointment. I went and slept for an hour, and then I got up and I just continued. So it was crazy. But nice.
So that was your first experience, and then how did you go on from
nothing
there?
happened really. So I was at Invest Cyprus, which was quite.
You had your baby first of all.
I had my baby.
Yeah.
Yes, all went well, and
was
I
your
was
first baby.
Yeah, she was my first. I was working for Invest Cyprus, which actually does give you the chance to interact a lot with the government. So by that point, I'd got to know the president and, you know, various ministers, where we were trying to do to help with different reform processes. And also at the time, there was big talk about the Ministry of Growth, which had a lot of work behind it in terms of the reforms that would have happened had it happened. So I was working with a lot of people in government to kind of help them to prepare it. And so I suppose, you know, when I was appointed shipping deputy minister, I certainly didn't expect it or have any sort of expectation in that direction at all. But it happened when the president at the time, Mr. Anastasiadis, got re-elected. So he called me one day and he asked me to do it. And I said yes. So that's how it happened, really.
Amazing. So, but that's when you became the Minister of Energy.
So yeah, that was 2.5 years down the line. George Lakodribis wanted to leave, and so he informed the president. Were looking for a replacement, I guess, and they asked me, which was very nice and very nice of the president. Yeah, so, and again, I said yes. So yeah.
So, and during your tenure, what were the most challenging moments that you faced?
A lot of challenging moments. I think having to negotiate things that are where you feel the weight of responsibility, in that, you know, you're negotiating on behalf of your country is definitely a difficult thing. One of them that went well was renegotiating the tax regime, the tonnage tax for shipping deputy ministry. I think that was one of the most enjoyable things I did as well, because I love tax, so I had to. I had the opportunity to do that, and it was really amazing. I mean, I had a lot of support from obviously the people at the deputy ministry, but also the shipping chamber and lots of experts who were there to help us. But we did a good job, I think, of preserving all the advantages and getting some more results. So that was great. And that was a project that took around 2 years. So we started it when I went in 2018. We finished, I think we got the approval, obviously, for 2020, because we needed to renegotiate it for another 10 years until 2030. So that was a lovely experience. But similarly, you know, having to, for example, negotiate with Exxon, Mobil and Qatar Energy to get to decide the fate of Plot 5 in REZ was also an amazing experience, and very sensitive and
sure,
you know,
quite stressful.
and stressful, but they were they were lovely. It's just very motivating to be negotiating at that high level because people are so professional, they're so experienced, and it's very motivating. But also the different sort of talks that we had with different countries like Israel, Egypt, on not just the gas issues, but also renewables and different big projects that the government was trying to take forward. That was really interesting.
What are you most
and then
proud
even
of?
At the sort of local level of having to speak to trade unions and sort of try and find the best solution for things like getting the legislation for the electricity market to open. That was a challenge in COVID where we had to do that with over a video call. Imagine having 20 different people shouting on the video call with different opinions and having to kind of find a common solution. All of those things were experiences that I really feel very lucky to have had, but also very tough, where you're at the time kind of not sleeping at night and thinking, how am I going to deal with this? What am I going to do about that? What am I most proud of? I don't. It's hard to say. I mean, there's a lot of things. Like in shipping, I would say I'm very proud as Invest Cyprus. It was on the transition of managing to get P&I clubs to move to Cyprus, which seemed like a massive dream at the time, that no one would actually want to look at Cyprus, given that it was quite early on, I think, after 2013 and stuff, and memories were fresh of all of that, and it was difficult to sort of do the business development in a way that would work out. And then when it did, we were immensely proud. But also the companies that eventually ended up moving to Cyprus in the shipping domain as well. That was massively rewarding because you see the fruits of your efforts actually
taking
place, and it's a very obvious KPI, I guess, that you can see right in front of you. And even through COVID, with the difficulties and the fact that we did the crew changes, and we were one of the first countries to actually allow crew changes in a way that allowed thousands of crew members to go back to their countries after months or years of roaming the seas, was very motivating. But it also helped business wise because it was something that companies appreciated as well. And then we had companies deciding to move here in the end, particularly with the cruises and the cruise companies as well.
Definitely. Well, we had some at the San Rafael Marina.
Yes, exactly. And thank you for that, because you were very instrumental, actually. Very instrumental. And they didn't want to move. There was a whole question of someone decided to move them one day for a bit further down, and they almost left. But thankfully, we were able to stop that. But in energy, commerce, and industry, I think two things. One is renewables, and a lot of work needs to be done for Cyprus to go through the green transition. And I think that we lay foundations in a lot of things that are only sort of slowly now taking place, because those kinds of investments are long term and you need to change, and a lot of legislation and a lot of...
That was one of my questions for you, actually, like looking towards the future. How do you envision the country balancing economic growth and environmental sustainability?
Yeah, that's a difficult question. I mean,
it's a hot topic. I know.
It's a hot topic.
I'm very pro, obviously, sustainability and anything you can do for the environment.
It's a shame that a lot of it is being put under into question now because of various political sort of developments and agendas. I think the environmental effects are obvious, and the costs of not doing anything are huge, because with all these natural disasters and things that are claiming lives, let alone all the
nature,
sort of financial and economic impact they're having, and the impact on nature as well, and the quality of life of people in our part of the world and in every part of the world, but also, losing endangered species and having a lot less to offer to our kids in terms of the experiences and the richness of the ecosystem they live in. I think that's very sad. But I think with sustainability, the question is, how do you embed it in people's culture? And that starts with everything that we do, the personal choices that we make, the corporate sort of way of functioning, which is fundamentally different and very, very much very far away from what it should be. And I think sadly it's taking much longer for us to adapt than the time we have available to adapt. And so because of those agendas that you mentioned earlier, it's taking even longer, and it will potentially take even longer. So as many people say, and they're completely right, the planet does not need us. We need the planet. We're not destroying the planet. We're destroying ourselves. The planet will regenerate itself after we're gone. So it's sad that we're doing this. But it is what it is. I suppose we all have to try our best to
definitely on an individual level, and hopefully
but also on a policy level,
policy.
and to sort of be a bit more practical about it. I suppose I think there's things that need to be done in Cyprus to promote green transition. I think storage is key. I think upgrading our electricity grid is key. We do have a lot of challenges which are not which are difficult to overcome. We're an island, we're very small, we don't have abundance of space, we can't put photovoltaics everywhere, it's not going to work like that. So we need smart solutions, we need a smart grid, and we need storage solutions, and those two things are really, really key, much more so than other efforts that are going on, and I think we need to focus on that a lot.
And see, what technology comes out, what's available, what we can do.
And how we can change the culture and mindset. But the government also needs to spend money on it to come out with programs which will incentivize companies and particularly companies active in renewables to invest, in things that without that funding might not seem that attractive. So
absolutely.
That's what needs to happen. Absolutely. But also, the EAC needs to upgrade the grid ASAP, like yesterday. Yeah, and there was money in that in the RRF. I don't know I know there were a lot of difficulties, but I certainly hope they can be overcome. Definitely.
Well, not definitely, I hope so, but definitely it needs to be addressed ASAP. So moving on from this subject, because it's a huge subject and we could stay on it for days.
I know. Yeah.
And probably get a lot of different comments coming in from the listeners and different views. Let's talk about women in leadership. So I think you've become quite a role model, whether you wanted to or not.
Hardly. I hardly
well,
think
you
so.
say that, but I think for so many, this topic has come up. I get invited to lots of conferences on this and talking about women empowerment. I was at one the other day. Whether you feel it or not, at the end of the day, you are well
I feel
known.
The opposite, actually,
well-known
because
woman.
You see the criticism much more than you see the positive comments in a way, and so sometimes you feel like you've made all this effort just.
But there will always be the negative critics.
Yes, that's absolutely true. Absolutely.
And I always say,
for the positive comments.
And I always say, as long as you sleep well, as long as we sleep well at night, being ourselves, doing what we do,
absolutely true.
Let the haters hate.
No, I mean, to be honest, I've been quite lucky with that. In that I haven't sort of had any.
Too bad.
Severely negative experiences in that, in that respect compared to others. So
compared to others, but women in leadership, we know we are definitely in terms of equality, we are behind in Cyprus.
Oh, yeah.
The stats are there. So it is nice to see. I mean, I'm told that all the time, and I don't think I'm doing anything exceptional. But people are always like, "Wow,
Yeah, of
we're
course
so
you
happy
are.
that we see a woman, we tell our kids about you, and the same, So you were in government, and I didn't even know the stats on this, but there's very few women at the top. We're one of the lowest in Europe for women in the
Yeah.
boardroom, women management. I'm very proud that at our hotel and our company we're 50% female
Yay!
employees.
Wow, good for you.
That's amazing. But on the most part, it's not like that
Yes,
in most companies.
Probably has to do with you being there as well, that you've hit those targets.
I don't know.
Well, if you
maybe,
promote
but
it, if you
yeah.
feel strongly about it, it certainly helps because a lot of people don't.
I also think because a hotel it's a microcosm, as it reflects normal society. So there are jobs that are more suited for more masculine sides, for more feminine sides.
Traditionally, yes, but I don't believe that we should compartmentalize.
That's why I didn't say men or women. I said sides. Yeah. So, but as you, let's say, talking about you, a woman in a high position, what challenges did you face that maybe were unique to that? And what advice would you have for any women aspiring for political positions?
Look, I think the biggest, there's two challenges. First challenge is peer pressure, which I suppose might be less of a problem now, but growing up, it was expected for a girl and a woman to kind of lay back and prepare for marriage and be like, oh, when I get married, I need to get a government job or a job where I can finish at 3 and take care of kids and da-da. And because I don't know, I have an innate sort of need to rebel against that. I don't know why. It's probably just my personality. So I was always kind of rejecting that very, very vehemently. But I also had parents who kind of went along with it and supported it and were like, yeah, whatever, just do whatever you want, and they allowed me to do that. I think people who don't have that benefit might actually succumb to pressures that are external, and I think that's a great shame because I've seen a lot of talented women around me through the years, people I've grown up with, people I've gone to school with, sort of consciously make decisions that were not to the for the benefit of their careers, but more because of these reasons. And the second reason, which really kind of reinforces the first, unfortunately, is that there is not equal delegation of households, I would say childcare responsibilities. And so once you have kids, it becomes much more difficult. And even in England...
And the responsibility falls much more on the mother.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking to someone this week about even in England, numerous people have told me in the past that the woman has stopped working because childcare is so expensive and it doesn't financially make sense for both of us to work. And I'm like, well, why did it? And I remember one situation, there was this lawyer, he was a partner, he was working for a large shipping company and we were on a trip abroad. He was English and he was saying this and I said, oh, what does your wife do? He says, oh, my wife was a partner she was my boss at my law firm, but then when we got married she quit. And I said, why didn't you quit since you were the subordinate in this situation? And he said, oh, I don't know, we just thought it was more appropriate for her to do that. And then why didn't you just get childcare? Oh, because it wasn't financially viable. And I said to him, well, yeah, but now you would both have been partners and it would certainly have been financially viable. And so why couldn't you have made the sacrifice to, go a bit out of your way for a little bit to support your wife more? And it really annoys me that there is this expectation. I mean, I'm not saying that...
And that's fine.
I mean, obviously some women and men, some people choose to stay at home, both women and men these days. And that's absolutely fine. I respect that. But I do not like it when women feel the external pressure and guilt and basically just do that because of those reasons. And then finally, one of the reasons why I am able to I have been able to do what I do, is that I have a lot of support from my parents who are literally just doing so much for me, in terms of, picking up kids, taking care of kids, babysitting, da da da. And it shouldn't be that way, because obviously, not everyone is lucky enough to have that, and sometimes it's just circumstance, and parents have the right to not dedicate their lives to their kids and say, I'm going to, spend my entire time babysitting so that my children can do what they want to do. So,
but many do.
So I think in Cyprus we lack a lot in, infrastructure to help parents to do stuff, and I think also law and policy should be in a direction where everything is shared. So, many years ago, I went to an event. It was before I got involved in politics, and there was an ex-minister, I won't say who, and talking about, women's rights and this and that at an event, a BPW event or something like that. And in at question time, I raised my hand and I said, I'm a person who likes to works very hard, and I would like to be able to, when I have a child, to share my parental leave with my spouse, because maybe he is not gonna wanna work during that time, and it would be lovely for our kid to have the benefit of one parent at home. And I got massively shouted at, because the person said, our society is not mature enough for this nonsense sort of thing, and if we do it, men are going to just watch the football and make their wives go to work anyway and take care of the kids anyway, and so we're not doing it. So I thought, on the one hand, I understand that Cyprus is behind on some things, and perhaps you have to move at a slower pace. But on the other hand, I really do think that unless you force change, it's not going to happen. And if we all agree that change is beneficial and that it needs to happen, and I think we all agree, apart from some exceptions that I've recently seen on TV, I think we all agree that change needs to happen and that the workforce needs to be enriched, particularly now that we're not having enough kids. The workforce needs to be enriched by people who are able and willing to contribute. So if we all agree that that is the case, why can't we have policies that will encourage that? It's as simple as that, I think. And then that answers all the questions about whether it be quotas, whether it be specific policies and benefits and funding. I think it all comes down to that.
And so what would your advice be to women aspiring for big roles?
My advice would be, firstly, to put themselves out there. I described earlier the whole election thing. It was a massive challenge for me, but psychologically, sort of, and I was very close to saying no. And then when I thought about it, I thought, people don't, these sorts of opportunities don't come your way very often, and when they do, as a woman, you have the duty to take them on, because if you don't, you can't complain that you don't have opportunities, right? So that was my thinking when I said yes. I said I'm going to do it because I don't want to turn it down and then be regretting that, I've never, or be in a position to not be able to complain that I've never had any opportunities, So I think, number one, don't be scared. I think a lot of the reason why more men are successful is not just the inequality and all the rest, which is definitely that, but it's also the fact that through the centuries, they've been taught to take risks, to take more risk. They're more familiar with it. They're more comfortable with it, and they do it, and risk can lead to bad results. I'm not saying it doesn't. That's, high risk, high return, right? So you could end up losing, but you could also end up gaining from an experience, and I think even the experience itself is valuable enough.
It's worth it, absolutely.
So yeah, that's my advice. But the second piece of advice, very practical, is always just try to have support in various ways, and not to allow themselves to get guilted by people to feel that they have to do things, that it's better if they do things than someone else. Housework is not better if you do it yourself. Babysitting is okay if you spend quality time with your kids when you are there, instead of playing on your phone or watching stuff on TV or whatever it is, So I think
be present and
be present,
and also subcontract
and
when you need to.
You can be, but don't get guilted into thinking that you need to, forego opportunities because of those reasons. I think that's key. That women, I think, again, through the centuries, women have been guilt-tripped into doing stuff for a very long time, and I think that's a shame.
Absolutely. So before we get to the favourite quote that I ask everyone in the bonus question, last question from me, future goals. What are your future plans? Goals. Now, what are you planning on next? You've done so many amazing things so far. What's next? If you can say.
I hate this answer because it's the easy answer, and I hate it when other people give it. But literally, my most important goal is to be able to provide for my children and to give them opportunities in the world, and to make sure that they grow up to be decent human beings, with the opportunity of educating themselves. So that's my primary goal. Beyond that,
I think... For you, professionally?
Professionally, it's hard to say. I think that I very, very much believe that, the value, what I value the most about my life, I suppose, as a person, kids aside and things, is it sounds silly if I put it like this, not my CV, but my experiences. Like, I think that, you can be the richest person in the world, you can be the most important person in the world, and you can lose everything from one moment to the next. And I think the only thing that stays with you for life is what you have to present for yourself. I always try to enhance my knowledge and learn stuff and be good at what I do and contribute. And I don't know exactly, where I'll end up, but I hope that through hard work and applying myself and doing the things that I've learned to do well in life, that I'll be able to progress and to do more things that I find motivating. So
I'm sure
that's very generic, but it is.
You know what? That's so touching. My grandfather, who achieved a lot in his life, from small place in Syria to moving to Lebanon and building an empire, always said that we had to be educated as children, as grandchildren. And he said everything can be taken from you. Your passport, your money, your home. There's nothing you can have that can't be taken from you, you can't lose, except for what's in your brain. So just keep learning, keep growing. So and you've just said it as well in different words, but the same sentiment. So I love that. And that's how we were brought up. So, favourite quote on that note. What's your favourite quote?
My goodness. Okay,
I'm sure there's many.
I've thought about it a little bit. So, I love Oscar Wilde. Okay. Everything that Oscar Wilde has said. I think he was the epitome of bravery as well. And he lived at the time, and how he didn't care about, what other people thought. One of the things that he said is, be yourself because everyone else is taken. I love that. But also, the best thing to do with good advice is to pass it on. And that's also so true that, you do what you feel in your heart at the end of the day, even if you seek 1,000, pieces of advice from 1,000 different people. I've looked up one, so life is far too important a thing to ever talk seriously about. And I think that's
Tell me again, life is far
too important a thing to ever talk seriously about.
Yeah.
Which is also true. I think in Cyprus especially, we tend to sort of, make big deal
Now
out of
start from more.
everything, and so and dwell on things, talk about them again and again, and you know, just live your life and be happy about it and cherish what you have. I think we're not grateful enough for all the things that we have in Cyprus.
I agree.
Really.
I agree.
And then finally, Margaret Atwood is also one of my favourite writers, and the one I chose from her, which is a bit tough, is, as she always is ignoring isn't the same as ignorance. You have to work at it, and I think you do have to ignore certain people at certain times.
I love that.
That is also, yeah.
I didn't know that quote, but
she talks a lot, you know, about teenagers and women and life and how they were sort of, especially when she was growing up, you know, expected to be a certain way, and it's important to learn to be yourself, I suppose, as the other quote by Oscar Wilde says as well. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing those. Last and final question,
Ooh,
bonus question.
Oh my goodness!
This is from our team.
One.
What did you get?
Okay, if you could wear one colour for the rest of your life, oh my god, what would it be?
I love that.
Oh my god. So, you know, I would normally wear black, but I have consciously made a decision to reject it consciously much of the time, because you end up, it's a bit, yeah. So I'm going to go with white if I had to wear one colour. Yeah.
That's white. Nice, happy.
Yeah.
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 I love that. Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you so
Natasa,
much.
thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing so much about what you've done. I can't wait to see what else you do. We finally managed it.
Yeah.
Now we're off
Thank
to
you
events.
so much.
Pleasure.
It's been an honour, and congratulations. I love other podcasts, and I love what you do and everything else that you do. We're very proud of you.
Thank you.
As an inspiring woman and individual.
Thank you so much.
And entrepreneur here in Cyprus. So thank you.
Thank you. It means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. We'll see you on the next episode. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button because it helps us more than you may realise. If you are planning on coming to visit us at St. Raphael Resort and Marina, feel free to email our reservations team quoting Hotel Talk and receive an exclusive offer just for you. We look forward to seeing you soon, hearing your feedback about our show, and producing many, many more interesting episodes just for you, our listener, and our valued guest in mind. Thank you so much, and take care.